Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett. I am joined by my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, why is this team trying to kill me?
I don't have any answers. I was just saying to Chris offline that there's going to be tons of ridiculous comments tonight, and some of it's going to be deserved. Some of it's just going to be outlandish stuff. This this group or this fan base has every right to be broken and say totally outlandish stuff right now. It's been such a weird season. This loss that we're going to talk about here would be so much easier if it didn't make number 6 on the loss rate. Like if you had beaten the Patriots, if you had beaten the Broncos and didn't pile yourself and back yourself into a corner, you could walk away from a loss to the Philadelphia Eagles and feel okay about it, right? But the needing the victory to keep your season going, pain in my stomach, heart, head, all of it. Everything hurts.
For anyone who isn't aware, you are joining us because the Buffalo Bills have been defeated by the Philadelphia Eagles 37-34 in overtime.
Yeah.
With the second score in overtime because
we
they
won
drove
the coin
down because we won the coin toss and went down and scored and still lost after giving up an insane third and long touchdown to a person named Alameda Zacchaeus after insane penalties on a handful self-inflicted that were really dumb, like pre-snap stuff and dumb penalties, but then some incredibly ticky-tack penalties with almost incredulous comments from Jim Nantz and Tony Romo about the number of missed calls against the Eagles. Despite all of that, the Bills took a lead despite James Cook dropping an easy walk-in touchdown, despite Tyler Bass missing 2 field goals. The Bills still had a healthy lead. They still scored first in overtime, and we still found a way to lose. I don't.
It wasn't a healthy lead against the Eagles. 10's not
correct. Yeah, 10 should be good, but this is the Eagles' 4th straight win, being down double digits and being down at halftime. They're 10-1 now. They are one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. And the Bills
just find ways to win, and we just find ways to lose.
Most measures were the better team today. Like that, they outplayed the Eagles in a lot of different ways. Obviously, the Eagles found a way to win. They won the game. They, were the better team in the ultimate sense. But the Bills played well. They put up 34 points. They put up an insane let me get the number here, 505 yards on the Philadelphia Eagles. They ran for 173 yards on the number 1 rush defense in the NFL.
I'm even having a hard time. Like the defense giving up this many points, and most of it in the second half. Like I'm sure we're going to pick apart McDermott and defense and play calling and stuff like that. But I'm even having a hard time really being mad at the defense the way they played this game for the majority of the game. Like I'm at a loss for who to be mad at and what to be mad about. But it does just feel like this is the type of season it is for Philly and Buffalo, where Philly just finds ways to win and the Bills just find ways to lose, even when they're beating a team and they should win the game. And it just seems like that's just, I hate to chalk it up to that's just the kind of year that it is, but it just feels like this is the kind of year that it has been for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and a ton of it went both ways. I think there were some really good, aggressive decisions early that I credit McDermott with. I was also frustrated with the handling of the end of the game. Gabe Davis had a phenomenal game and deserved a ton of credit. And sadly, the only moment anybody's going to remember is him not turning the right way or not looking for the ball early on the game-winning touchdown. The officials were atrocious early on, and then we did get a bunch of calls, and Josh Allen sold a pretty, bad pass, roughing the passer call. The majority of the referee issues were still against us. That didn't negate
a lot of
how bad the officiating was.
Missed calls, at least 2 big pass interference, one in that overtime, totally holding on to receiver where you see all the time.
Receiver gets those calls. Like that wasn't against Khalil Shakir. That was like Stefon Diggs is supposed to get those calls when it's latent. Like that's how that's supposed to go. Tyler Bass made some like actual clutch kicks, but also, you made a comment in our staff chat. This is the first time in a while where I don't feel automatic when he goes out there to attempt to kick. Like I used to just feel like, oh, we're good. No, and like
I'm nervous.
Feel with Jake Elliott. Like I used to feel like that, and now I'm like, well, maybe. And the one was a block. That's not his fault. Like Jalen Carter's an enormous human. That's not his fault. But he just shanked the other one. Like that was just a bad kick.
In the condition, like it's tough in this, but then you see Elliott hit a 59-yarder to send it into overtime.
That would have been good from 65.
Yeah. Although maybe if he was further back, that ball would have kept slicing.
Like correct. You probably would have hooked out somewhere around 64 and a half. I'll give him 64 and a half.
But still, that he was able to hit the kick that his team needed. And if Bass hits that, we're having an entirely different conversation here. It just seems like when they need certain plays from certain guys, it doesn't happen. I don't know who to blame even on that overtime touchdown attempt on Gabe Davis or Josh Allen. I know we probably won't blame Josh Allen. He had an incredible game, so I'm not going to sit here and try to bury on Josh, but we keep seeing these misses on these like option route type situations. And so somebody's
their decision making at that pivot point. And again, that's an all out cover zero blitz. Josh has to make a split second decision. Gabe Davis has to make a split second decision. I know Romo was saying you need to get your eyes back so you can see where that is. I think Gabe probably had enough time to adjust, even if he made the other decision. If he got his eyes back, I think he could have adjusted and made up for either Josh's mistake or Gabe's mistake, either one, because he didn't. And that's the one thing I'll put on Gabe is he also knew that was a cover zero blitz.
Yeah.
He also knew that, hey, I probably need to look back and see if the ball's coming earlier than what he did. Charles, thank you. I appreciate it. We'll do our best to read the super chats tonight, but it's a frantic evening. But yeah, even more so, Josh Allen's interception was a horrible play that they baited him into, but he was awesome the rest of the game. He was a superhero tonight. Like he put the game on their back. James Cook had some really good plays, like 100 total yards, some tough running, not like all explosive runs, but some good tough yards. He also had a back-breaking drop at the beginning that should have put us up immediately with a 7-0 lead. Stefon Diggs had an awesome game and had a couple kind of uncharacteristic drops. The offensive line was fantastic, and they gave up our only sack of the game in a really like back-breaking moment where it sucked to give up our only sack of the game, but they were awesome the rest of the game.
That sack, Josh,
I want to be mad at someone, and I don't know.
That felt like a coverage sack, that one. Like, he still had time. He was patting the ball. Like, they got home. The offensive line had a heck of a game considering the defensive line that they played against.
They had like one awesome called run blitz where they completely blew us up, and then another one when we were back in our own territory where they kind of sniffed out what we were doing and blew up a run play for a tackle for loss. Besides those two, there were not negative plays. Like Joe Brady and Josh Allen had this offense cooking the entire time. We just, as you said, this entire season found ways to shoot ourselves in the foot. We missed field goals. We dropped touchdown passes. We are not on the same page on game-winning touchdowns, and we continue to find ways to just screw things up when it's 500 yards in the Eagles.
Yeah.
How the hell did we lose?
Merck, good friend of the show, put out that image that was getting passed around about how Sam Howell plays quarterback. The other, I don't know if everybody saw that one, but it's a meme image where the guy's pointing a gun at somebody and pointing a gun at his head. That's the Bills.
Yeah.
That's the Bills, man.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's all self-inflicted. I want to be super mad at coaching. There's definitely plenty to go on coaching, but like early in this game with the penalties, people were yelling about coaching. These are professional athletes. I don't know if penalties are on coaches anymore when you're at the professional level. It is when you're kids and you're coaching kids and they don't know the rules. You got to like get them disciplined, but these guys are pros. And to your point, like some of it was kind of egregious in how much was going against the Bills versus Philly. And for the first time in my life, Greg,
inconsistency. I never get mad about calls. The only time I get mad is, hey, if you're going to get us for those, you can't also give Slade the tugs. It's the
Yeah.
inconsistency.
You know me. I hate when people just start bitching about refs.
Yeah.
I think it's super lame, and all year I've been doing it, and I don't know if it's just officiating's bad league wide, like worse than normal, or if I'm just living in recency bias. But today, honestly, I looked at my wife for the first time and really was like, I can understand why some people think this stuff's rigged. Like today was an example of
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I could see why this feels rigged to people. I'm not saying it was, but it was
It
so
wasn't.
egregious.
I'm even comfortable saying it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, it's not actually rigged.
But that is how
The
it
world
feels,
doesn't
right?
hate us.
No.
It just feels that way. It
Yeah.
just feels like they hate us.
No, just our team hates us.
Correct. Like technically the box score here is going to show that like Leonard Floyd had one tackle and that's it. Like one assist. He had an awesome game.
Yeah.
AJ
Brute had a
Epinesa
great game,
had a
too.
really impactful game. Ed Oliver had a monstrously impactful game. Technically, the 2 sacks went to Linval Joseph and Tim Settle.
Okay.
But
Greg
they
Rousseau
were
had a couple stops that weren't sacks, but they were
correct.
because he was running, because Hurts was running, but
There's
still had
also
tackles
going to
for
be
loss.
a ton of pressures that cause throwaways that were turnovers. Like we had a ton of third down pressures that caused them to throw the ball away that are actual turnovers. Like this, they were only 4 of 11 on third down. They didn't even go for a fourth down.
Yeah.
So those 7 times, I would guess on those 7, 5 or 6 of them were because of pressure. Like in the opening drive where they had just 3 straight pressures to cause throwaways. That's not a sack. That doesn't technically show up there, but that's caused there. Similar
Pressure
to you,
matters.
in your acknowledgement to your wife about the understanding the rigged comment tonight, I now have finally understood the Von Miller looked really bad. Really, really bad. Like there was a couple plays where like early on, he had a couple where it was some significant loafing, like not like plays where he could have impacted where Von Miller was actually scrambling. On the Linval Joseph play where Linval chased him all the way to the sideline, Von was there and like not even jogging after him in case he cut back or anything like that. There's another play where Nance was talking him up and he on like 3rd and 12.
He bit the run and there wasn't even a run.
He bit on a play that wasn't even a run fake.
Yeah.
Like it was just weird. There's just some
He
stuff
did have
where
there was at least 2 that I counted where it wasn't the typical moves you're used to seeing from Vaughn, but I saw him push his man back
correct.
into Hurts and make Hurts leave the pocket, which counts as a pressure. It
collapse
might
the
not show up on
pocket
PFF
to some extent.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on Vaughn.
I was really I wanted one of those plays to be the one where I could be like, see, that's where Vaughn is back. He's been trending in the right direction. And not only did he not make that play where I was hoping to shut people up and be like, see, that's what we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
He almost went the other direction and I saw very little impact. So just acknowledging a lot of, I've been telling people to pump the brakes on that and to calm down a lot on that. I would have liked to have seen a little bit of that tonight. And not only that, I think that Eric Washington recognized it as well. And it's why Leonard Floyd and AJ Epinesa played almost all of overtime.
Yeah, he probably also hit his snap count limit.
Sure,
I think he's still on a limit. He's not a year still from surgery, right? Like that. There was so he tore it on Thanksgiving. Then there was like that week that went by where they were wondering
if they did the exploratory.
Yeah, thinking maybe it was an MCL, maybe he could keep going because he was saying he was going to be back.
A lot of the plan was post-bye.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm still on pumping the brakes. I get that there's frustration that he's stealing snaps in these situations and big games. I don't disagree there, but you do have to trust the medical team plan in a situation like this. And this isn't a whole lot different from the conversation we were having about Trey White this time, where he was not even back to playing a year after surgery. And we were having the conversation, does he love football or not? Because he hasn't decided whether or not he was going to come back. And then it was still going into the playoffs where he was still not himself. And so I'm still willing to wait time. It's just tough when the Bills have backed themselves into this corner and you're having big games. it does feel like those snaps could go elsewhere, but we're also, besides AJ playing extra snaps or something like that, which he looked good
Needing
tonight.
oxygen again.
Yeah, like there is a rotation in this defensive line, and so it's still very limited snap count. But like RJ saying, I think he shot completely. I'm not going that far. Like I don't expect him to come back to the level that he was at when he got hurt. He's an older, aging player, suffered a major injury. If Von Miller comes back at 75, 80%, that's still a very good player. The contract's going to hurt, but those things are, I always talk about those contracts like buckets. Like you're not paying AJ Epinesa a lot of money. Yeah. You're not paying some of these other guys a ton of money.
Eugene here asking, your colleagues, Air Raid, want McD fired. You still for keeping him? We talked about in the last games here that we're open to the discussion. I had taken it as far as I think that there's a good argument to be made that we need to, because of the roulette we'll continually have to play with offensive play callers. If Joe Brady stays doing what he's doing the rest of this season, what's to stop him from getting an interview this offseason and immediately losing him too? And maybe that's too soon. Maybe we do keep him going into next year. If he has another good season next year, that will be his last season. And then he will leave and go somewhere else. And we'll go through that roulette again of, hey, can we get the sixth best offensive mind, because the top 5 all get head coaching jobs, and continue down that cycle over and over again. Again, if you get lucky and you get the Bobby Slowick, you get the Ben Johnson, you get a 2-year window. If you don't win a Super Bowl in those 2 years, you play roulette again and you start again. And maybe you get Matt Canada. Maybe you get whoever ends up being the guy who's not the answer. Maybe you get Ken Dorsey. That each of those pieces, I think Sean McDermott doesn't deserve to be fired. Like, he's a good coach. He would be unemployed for hours. His agent would have multiple options immediately to be a head coach again in the NFL, and he would deserve it. He still has a better winning percentage than Marv Levy. He turned around this franchise and dug us out of a 17-year playoff drought, the longest drought in professional sports. And I understand why we might need to fire him, because it's not sustainable to win with him.
Yeah, I don't know about all of that. It's a down year, and that's tough, and that's a hard pill to swallow. I understand there's a lot of moments where it hasn't gone well in big time moments. The NFL is full of bad coaching, whether it's an offensive coach, defensive coach. It's just full of bad coaching. We see it all the time. I've actually pulled back on the fire McDermott. One, I think Terry Pagula business is good. The Bills are in every major commercial. Their jerseys are selling.
Let me clarify. Terry Pagula is not firing Sean McDermott. There is zero chance Sean McDermott is fired this offseason.
Yeah.
Absolutely zero.
Toe-to-toe with the Eagles. And while they lost, that sucks. And there's parts of this loss that are on Sean McDermott, and that sucks too. Like, you still did it. You still went toe-to-toe with the Eagles, and it was the game of the week. And the reason it was the game of the week is because you are a sought-after professional football team that everybody wants a part of. And so for Terry, this is a business. The Bills are still a playoff caliber team. As long as that is in existence, it's going to be very hard to pull that away from Terry Pagula. In terms of, I don't agree with you on the necessarily. I understand the philosophy of what you're saying about getting an offensive coach, but there's just as much risk of switching coaching staffs to an offensive coach, whether it is a good offensive coordinator like a Ben Johnson.
We could hire Ben Johnson and he could end up being a terrible coach.
Yeah, and that sets you back. That can set you back even further than the idea. And I'm not saying don't be risk averse at all, but it's also, I don't know that we need to react to one down year. And I know Josh is in his prime, and so the clock feels like it's ticking, but there's plenty of examples of, I know there's that, there was an article done where if you don't win with a head coach and quarterback in the first 5 years, you're never going to do it. And I don't know that that's necessarily true just because it hasn't happened yet.
Correct. It just means that hasn't happened.
Yeah, and the lifespan of coaches usually is only like a 3.5, 4 year window for head coaches. So it probably doesn't
get fired in that stretch.
Line up that well.
Most of the guys who keep their job longer than that are because they already won one. There's not that many that don't win a Super Bowl and keep their job that long. It's why people bring up the Marty Schottenheimers, the Marvin Lewises, names like that, because those are the scenarios where Andy Reid in Philadelphia, like that's where those scenarios come
Totally.
from, is that, hey, they were good, but not good enough. And, I don't know, is 6, are we in year 7? We're in year 7 with McDermott. So I don't know if almost 7 full seasons is enough to know that, but it is a long stretch. And again, all the other things I mentioned, he's the winningest coach in
I think they're one of the
history.
winningest franchises, not in terms of like trophies, but in sports right now.
Second.
Yeah.
They are the second winningest franchise. And I think it's from 2019 forward. I saw the same graphic I think you did, where they went through all 4 major sports. The Chiefs are the winningest,
and just winning
franchise.
Percentage.
So 19, 20, 22, 23. So the last, not quite 5 years, but since the beginning of the 2019 season, including all of this year. So 4 years and whatever we're at, 2/3.
Right.
The Bills are the second winningest franchise of all 4 major sports over those 5 years. And we're talking about whether we should fire our coach.
And to the chat that you pulled up, I don't think Tilt believes that we should fire McDermott. I'm not sure.
Yes, I would encourage
that's a math
Eugene,
speaking for the air raid hours.
When you go on Twitter and you see at Bills Guys, the air raid hour account, that is exclusively Steve Mathis.
Yes.
That is not an overarching statement of the air raid hour.
Yelling at us in the chat to fire McDermott for ever, as long as
I don't know that Dave Tilton is fully endorses every tweet from that account. I'm comfortable committing that he does not endorse every single tweet from that account. But God bless him.
Yeah.
All right, let's go through some
We're
what
gonna have
happened
to find a drive of the game
in the game here. You find a drive of the game. So again, Josh Allen, despite one pretty boneheaded play, not boneheaded, but Sean Desai and James Bradbury tricked him. They got him in a trap coverage where he read that Josh was going to go to Diggs, dropped off Gabe, actually left Gabe pretty wide open for the honey hole shot that Josh normally loves. He easily could have fit it in there before Blanket Chip would have made it over there. And instead, Bradbury tricked him with the size trap coverage. They picked it off. That was pretty much Josh's only really bad throw today. He was on an absolute heater. 29 of 51, 339, 2 touchdowns, another 81 rushing and 2 more touchdowns. All that passing in a driving consistent rain. I don't know how many of the incomplete passes are going to be scored as drops, because when it's rainy, I'm actually pretty lenient on calling things drops. It's hard to complete a ball in weather like that, but I would say out of those 22 incompletions, there's a good chunk of them that were catchable, passes, and just whether it's the receiver or the weather, you didn't. So James Cook was a drop. That one was not weather. He should have caught that one. So it easily could have been 3 touchdowns. So Josh had an amazing game. This was the Josh Allen experience in all its forms. Threw the team on his back with a multiple. How many 3rd and long runs did he pick up? He was amazing today, and he
2 touchdown runs.
Came off the field with a lead against a Super Bowl caliber team, and then watched his team lose.
Yeah, no, it's tough. The toughest thing about the one mistake is where in the game that happened, right? It's 24-21. You give up a short field after they already scored, and now they take the lead. And so you've totally evaporated that 10-point lead that you talked about earlier. And it's just the timing of these mistakes seems to be the consistent problem for the 2023 Buffalo Bills. Yeah,
around 27.
And the defense had mostly held up until that second half when they got a couple drives going, and then to put them back out on the field real quick after a touchdown drive. Again, right to start the fourth quarter. That's how you start the fourth quarter, is an interception and then giving up another score. And it's just, that's a tough spot. And that is just, you look back at some of these games, the Broncos game, even almost losing that Giants game, the times that they're making the mistakes probably hurt worse than the mistakes. Josh Allen just throwing a pick in the box score, I don't care. If he has a game like this and throws a pick, but when this is the opposite of the complementary football that they had played in different spots in this game, where they were getting points off turnovers. Now you're giving them up points off turnovers and giving your defense a short field when they're kind of backs against the wall reeling, and it just hurts. And so he made up for it. I'm not going to bury on Josh for this, but again, it just seems like the timing of these mistakes in these moments, and those aren't Sean McDermott errors. They weren't Ken Dorsey errors. They're not Joe Brady errors. That is just seemingly the narrative of this team this year.
So I'm going to ask you a question that you'll know is a loaded question, because I'm sure your initial instinct will be the same that mine was. If I asked you what the yards per carry was for James Cook, Latavius Murray, and Ty Johnson, what did it feel like today?
Like 4.5, 5?
Yeah, it was 2.9.
Crazy. Well,
yeah, and there were
some
of
stuff
those
like
stuffed
first,
1 yarders,
yeah,
stuffed 1 yarders. I don't think there was a lot of like big negative ones. The one that got blown up on the run blitz,
they also didn't
Ty
have
Johnson,
like huge breakaway
Ty Johnson
runs.
probably got hit with like a 5-yard loss on that one, and that
Yeah.
skews it a little bit. It felt a lot more successful running the ball. We did run the ball for 173 yards, but
like 11 was the longest, right?
Only 92 of it was the running backs, and the longest was that stretch where they had like back to back like
10, 11 yards.
11, 13 yarders.
Right.
That was longest, and Murray's longest was right there in that stretch. Ty Johnson had that awesome, like it counted for 4 yards, but it was an amazing tough run.
Yeah.
So like the running backs had so much better of a game than 2.9 yards per carry shows. So I was kind of shocked as I'm sitting there while you were talking. I'm like kind of doing the math in my head. I'm like, how did we only rush for running backs at 2.9 yards? I thought it was a plus game for them. The running backs also combined for 9 catches for 75 yards. So, together they had, 40 touches for 160 yards. So, definitely a huge contribution to the game, especially when it's against a number 1 in the league run defense that want to make you one-dimensional so they can send the waves of pass rushers at you. And the fact that they at least stopped that from being the case really made a huge difference in the overall capabilities of what they did. So I thought, despite the box score isn't going to look favorable for it because they technically didn't score any of the touchdowns and the numbers aren't going to look great, I actually thought the running backs played well.
I did too. Yeah. I mean, it's also kind of shows that yards per carry and those like volume yard type data points that we look at aren't always indicative of what we're actually seeing. Because I thought the run game not only looked good, they went away from it for a big chunk as well in this game, but then when they leaned back into it, again, to that drive you mentioned where it was 4 plays in a row where it was 11, 12 yards. That really is a killer to a defense late in a game to be able to lean into your run game like that. And if this was a playoff team, which I don't know if they can go on any type of run and become a playoff team, that's going to pay dividends if you can get into January football. And this is something that this team's been missing for a while, of having that type of punch where you can run the ball and leaning back into Josh's legs a little bit. We saw some scrambles, but we also saw some designed runs for Josh, which is something that you really need in these types of big games.
And I'll say that what should have been the game-winning touchdown to Gabe Davis was set up because of those runs.
Yeah.
Like they had beaten them into submission with that. They ran the same play, just flipping sides and changing formations a couple times, but they ran that same inside trap over and over and over again to the point where they bit on it and gave Gabe the wide open, like kind of laser slant that they run on occasion. That was because of that setup. They got the linebackers to just suck up until it was there for the touchdown. That was, really well executed, and sadly should be what we remember. That's the connection we should remember from Gabe Davis and Josh Allen. Unfortunately, it'll be the one that didn't happen in overtime.
Yep.
From a receiving standpoint, I think that Darius Slay is an excellent corner. The rest of the secondary is okay. I was kind of hoping for a bit more Dalton Kincaid. Khalil Shakir had some really timely plays, but a limited number of targets. Gabe Davis had probably his best game in a while here since I don't remember which the other game was a big one. The one prior to the Broncos, the Tampa game, is those are his 2 best this year, but still 6 of 12 and a couple he would have wanted back, not not big time mistakes. Obviously, people will blame him for the late one. We don't really know who was at fault there. I thought the receiving was good tonight, but there were a couple plays. I don't think it was Diggs' best game. Shakir was really good, and I think Kincaid, I would have loved to have seen more opportunity late. I don't know if he looked like he got hit pretty hard on that one play. I don't know if that impacted his snaps late. I'm not
Could
sure.
have. Yeah, it seemed like he disappeared for most of the second half.
I was looking, and he was definitely out there plenty.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah,
on
no,
his
I
actual
mean
snap
disappeared
count
in
the
terms
second
of
half.
yeah.
It was less snaps. He definitely missed a little bit of time after that big hit, but he was back out there. But I don't even know if he was targeted in the second half, which that feels like the third time I've said that this year.
Yeah, it's tough. And he would have gotten real lit up. There was one where it might count as a drop against him where it hit off his hands in that first half. But if he would have caught that, he was about to just get like Josh put him in a tough spot there.
A legitimate alligator arm.
Yeah.
It probably was right of him to alligator arm it because he would have got destroyed.
On that one. But yeah, tough to see. Yeah, I thought Shakir again, explosive play machine. He gets that 31-yarder. Had a couple where it was that Beasley roll where he's coming out and just gets that first down real quick. I hate to talk about players sort of feeling like they waste a roster spot, but we saw Dante Hardy being inactive here this week, and then Trent Sherfield just feels like every time he's out there, and I'm sure he's still a good blocker.
Twice,
I'm sure there's roles.
Didn't know what he was supposed to do, and the play was to him.
Yeah,
twice.
That's tough. He was also involved in one of those. Darius Slay wrapped his arm around him when he was going for a diving catch. He wasn't going to catch it most likely, because I haven't seen him catch anything really.
I don't know. I don't know officially if he can catch the ball.
Yeah, but if
that bubble screen that was supposed to go to him and he blocked instead.
A huge miscommunication there for him. Yeah, just that feels like maybe a wasted roster spot, and that just makes that off season. I know Brandon Beane's got plenty of wins, but the wide receiver room probably not the win that maybe we thought it was in free agency. Maybe that we need to pump our own brakes.
Shorter probably could have played special teams and not played receiver. He could have done that.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good reminder come March that we need to like pump our own brakes when we sign guys that haven't proven anything really in the NFL, and we expect them to live up to their highlight reels or like their top best plays. And so that's a bit frustrating.
You're saying I shouldn't just watch Deontay Hardy's highlight reel?
Well, I do it too. Like I saw like some of the stuff from Sherfield. I was like, okay, like I can see how that fits, right? But
here's Miami's number 3 receiver.
Yeah, Andy Isabella was a call up. Didn't see him do it. Like they haven't been able.
He might have had like 2 or 3 offensive snaps, but wide receiver 5 is not intended to play a lot of snaps.
But if Sherfield,
in hindsight, he probably could have gotten Sherfield snaps.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I would love to see him get the bubble screen instead of Trent Sherfield.
After the Gabe Davis missed touchdown opportunity, I had people blowing up my mentions because I was like, oh, another miscommunication there. I hate seeing that. And they're like, Gabe's wasting a roster spot. And I get it. Like, I would like a better number 2 wide receiver, and I hope that they address that this offseason. But what roster spot is Gabe Davis wasting? Like there's nobody, like it's not Trent Sherfield's, it's not Andy Isabella's, Justin Shorter's still on IR. He can't even crack into this. Like who on the Bills is coming up to take that type of spot? And so they're not as deep as I thought they were at wide receiver, but it was still a pretty good game from the wide receivers. Obviously Gabe had a good game. Diggs had some big explosive, Shakir. So the top 3, when they're clicking and when Josh is clicking, is good enough, but they're not getting anything else beyond that.
Yeah. They're just, would have liked to have seen. And again, I think Shakir is showing that he has some big play potential and has some explosive playability. I don't think he has the speed that scares a defensive coordinator. He doesn't have like, I need to game plan for him speed. I would still like that. I would still like one of those as a weapon to add this offseason of like, like the safety has to take an extra step back because this guy's on the field. We don't have any of those. I would love one of those to be added in along with a guy like Shakir, who is shown at run after the catch ability and explosive ability downfield. But I want a guy that defensive coordinators are concerned with.
And I've heard a lot of people say Gabe should be wide receiver 2, or not Gabe, Shakir should be wide receiver 2. And as much as I'm the biggest Khalil Shakir stan right now that I can think of, and I don't agree with that. Like he's perfect for the slot role that he's in, of being that safety blanket. Yeah, he could be that Emmanuel Sanders role with a little bit of what Beasley did, and that's a perfect spot for him to be a productive part of this team. But yeah, I think he needs something on the outside, and they can't trait hunt just for speed, but it's got to have that speed element, to your point of at least making defenses consider that could happen to you at any given point.
He is ideally what Emmanuel Sanders was in his best situations, which is a really high-end wide receiver 3-4 who can be a slot, can be an outside, isn't ever your number one guy, but is always better than the nickel or dime back that they're going against for the most part and can make a play. I think that's where Khalil Shakir's career is going. And I did, we'll talk about draft stuff in the offseason and wide receiver in the first round and all the stuff that'll get attention as we go forward. But I would
they
love
lose
to
another
have
one. We might be talking about draft stuff here before Christmas.
Yeah, so we'll play with in the bye week. We'll probably need to play with the New York Times playoff simulator and figure out what our percentages are. I believe that by most measures, this loss dropped us to like the 30% range. So the season isn't technically over. Like we still have, we're still going to play the remaining 5 games, no matter whether we like it or not.
Tonight?
I did. It's
for those watching.
I'm annoyed how good it is. I'm annoyed.
Yeah, for those not watching tonight and are listening tomorrow, it says bye week, more like bye season. Get it? You guys get that?
I was so mad how you read that. It was worse. Hearing you read it was worse than me reading it.
Yeah,
over your
good. I'm glad I ruined it.
Yeah, no, it was very successful. That was worse. And it's not, the season's not over. There still is going to be a path. There were actually a couple impactful losses today. Later on tonight, I think I'm going to be a glutton for punishment and even do another show going over some of the games and what happened with it. But we'll get into that in the offseason, in the bye week next week.
I'm going to angrily wash dishes after this and just slam them into the drying rack.
I'm going to slam a couple extra doors.
Well, I listened to McDermott's press conference.
So now, and the next one is we flip to the defense here. I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth. They played an amazing first half where they held the Eagles to 7 points. And I don't know if the official number was 88 yards, but I think pretty close. That was the number. It was under 100. Late.
Yeah.
I think it was 88 yards, which, if we're being fair and being honest, that also means that in the second half plus overtime, that they gave up 30 points and 290 yards.
Yeah.
So we can't be completely complimentary. How much of that was adjustments? I don't know. How much of that was some of the guys who were impactful on the defensive line, maybe running out of some steam. They made adjustments. They made changes in their protections. They made some changes in how they were using the run plays. They had 0 run game in the first half. And I don't know that all of a sudden DeAndre Swift was amazing in the second half, but he had his only effective runs in the second half. Kenny Gainwell had effective runs in the second half. Jalen Hurts finally ran for a little bit in the second half, and obviously the game winner in overtime. All of that, I think it sucks to try to like have that whitewash the really, really awesome first half that they had, but they did. They gave up 30 points and 290 yards in the second half. So it obviously it wasn't enough. And they own their share of blame. They're not alone. The drops, the missed field goals, some of the coaching decisions, there's a lot of blame pie to go around. Unfortunately, an amazing first half defensive performance also gets a healthy slice of it because you let them give up way too much in the second half.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that it wasn't as complimentary football as you would have liked to have had in the first half with how good the defense was playing. We were talking about in the Cover One Slack DM group there, or just in our DM group, and saying like, man, this game should have been 20 something to 7 going into halftime.
Our only 2 touchdowns in the first half. Where'd they come from?
Yeah,
right off turnovers,
right off the
interception, and off the flipped up ball in the air from Leonard Floyd falling into Terrel Bernard's arms, and then the fumble recovery. Those are the 2 touchdowns in the first half. They didn't have an organic touchdown drive in the first half.
Correct, which is complimentary football. That's what you want to play, but the offense wasn't doing its share of the load in the first half, even as good as they played and as clean as they played throughout the first half, and then having the Bass miss field goal, obviously the Cook drop early in the game, like all those things felt like man, if they would have converted and played a little bit more clean and not getting themselves into trouble with penalties and things like that, this could have been a 20-7 game going into the half.
Yes.
And then you're having a totally different conversation about this instead of having a 10-point lead, which I didn't feel comfortable going into. I've watched enough Philadelphia Eagle games over this last month and getting ready for this show to realize, man, if you didn't have a 3+ score lead on the Eagles, like that game's still entirely within reach for them in the way that they play. Like that's how this team is built. They just find ways to win. And so that's exactly how it played out. Not being able to score right away in this game, and then them getting the ball at a half and keeping it within 2 scores, also terrible, even though the Bills were able to get the stop there. But you just felt like, man, at some point this offense is going to figure it out no matter how good you're playing. And of course they did. Yeah, and hats off to Sirianni and this staff. Their ability to shift what they're doing in a game, mid-game, mid-quarter is
4 straight wins, losing at halftime, and all 4 with a double-digit deficit. That's incredible.
Yeah, I talk a lot about bad coaching.
Against the Bills and the Chiefs, good teams.
Correct. Cowboys, like, I talk a lot about bad coaching in the NFL. They do a good job. Their staff does a very good job making adjustments, finding ways to win. It's never just one thing. It's never just the run game. Sometimes it's AJ Brown going off. Sometimes it's the run game going off. Sometimes it's the defense stepping up. They just find ways to win. And so I wish we had some of that. Most of the NFL doesn't, and that's why they're 9-1 and nobody else is.
Yeah.
Or 10-1.
I think Eric's been very adamant about like reminding us that Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer were never all that fast to begin with, and that people kind of overstate some of the loss to step. It's hard to remind yourself of that there are definitely some plays that it does feel like they're a step slow or not able to get to some spots. They've been amazing. They've been here for all 7 years. They've been arguably the second most important part of this run besides Josh Allen, maybe besides Allen and Diggs. It does seem like maybe this is the swan song of that. Like it's getting to that point of where that decision is, whether it's this year or next year. Mike is not under contract. Jordan is under contract next year, although it's very easily able to be gotten out of. I feel like, Douglas played well. We literally never heard Christian Benford's name all day. That's usually a fantastic thing. It was not a big AJ Brown or DeVonta Smith game. It was, there was a couple plays. The broken coverage was on a nice play where they just had a nice option down to the end zone where you had to either pick AJ Brown or Jalen Hurts, and one of them was going to score. It was just a great play call on their side of it. DeVonta Smith had the one longer one that made his stat line look good, but they had that under control for the most part.
Taryn had a good game.
Taryn had really clutch blitz that he chased Hurts out of bounds for what could have been a big play. Blew up a screen.
And even honestly, Poyer and Hyde, those are guys I want to watch back on this one, because definitely
Poyer had a really clutch play on the AJ Brown breakup
for sure, and they were in on a number of plays. And part of those that first half getting pressure on Hurts, a lot of those pressures were coverage pressures and stuff just being blanketed coverage in the back end. And so I do think probably for the most part, their game was better than not, but it's those moments where it does show up and it feels like you're saying that is frustrating, because, for more times than not in their Bills career here, they've been the guys that make the plays and are the guys that are creating those moments for the Bills. And so when you see them giving up the touchdown to Zacchaeus and that totally improv, the Bills also, what is it about this team just constantly finding ways to give up the most improbable touchdowns possible throughout this entire run? But when you see them
knowing like, hey, we're playing the Bills, I get to get their catch of the year.
I'm gonna just make a crazy insane catch while this guy's getting flushed out of the pocket. And so that is like, it's on them, right? Like that you give up a touchdown, it's on you. But they were there. Like, I don't know what it is about them, but I do think they're aging out. I do think that story is coming to an end one way or another for them. And the problem now is, like, I haven't seen enough out of like Taylor Rapp's pretty up and down. He's inconsistent. I don't think that he can come in and step in that role. And I was really high on Hamlin, but obviously he's having trouble getting onto the field, just a sheer numbers game, right? And because those guys are healthy, so that development totally paused and stagnated. So we don't know where he'll be at, and that's a big question mark heading forward for this team, because they have been stalwarts there, and they still do so much pre-snap that even if they've lost a step, their ability to process and do all these things and keep everybody in these coverages. And McDermott talked about that's a huge part of the success we've seen out of Terrel Bernard this year, is playing with Poyer, Hyde, and Taron Johnson, who have been in this defense so long, and they know how to pass everything off, and they know everything in pre and post snap. That helps these younger guys be able to play. And so even if they've lost a step, losing them and moving on without them is going to be a step in the wrong direction for the short term at some point.
Yeah, correct. No matter what, I don't believe we have. I'll be honest. I don't believe we have any other starting safeties on the roster right now. I think it's possible we have one. I don't think that Hamlin nor Rapp are starting safeties. I think they're both good depth players. I think if you added another really good piece, one of them could play next to that guy. I think if you started the two of them, it would be a significant liability that defenses would go after, especially in coverage. But we got lots of time to debate that in the offseason.
I was going to say, so you're saying screw wide receiver round one and go Cam Kitchens. Is that what you're saying right now?
Obviously.
Yeah.
I hate everything. I don't even know who Cam Kitchens is. I think with anything else on the defense, Linval Joseph is really fun for a 35-year-old run stuffer, like making an impact, chasing Jalen Hurts to the sideline.
I love that play.
That's freaking awesome. Yeah. Throwing guys around. Like I hope he does want to play again next year. And I'm even cool, like, giving him the agreement that, like, hey, we're just going to start you on physically unable to perform list. Just come in and refuse to take your physical, and we'll hide you until week November. 8 or 9, whenever you feel like you want to play again, and you're welcome back. Like, I'm good just running that back as long as you want. Not in the same way that Kyle Williams had that, like, hey, you get a 1-year deal until you feel like stop playing anymore.
Yeah, he's not.
But like, from a practical standpoint, I'm good. Like, being that size and that strength just doesn't age out. Like, he can. Ted Washington played till he was like 41. Yeah. So I'm good with him. I'm happy with him.
Yeah, all right. There was a moment where Jordan Davis chased Josh to the sideline, got hurt. I don't even think he got hurt. I just think he needed a break.
You just like needed oxygen right there in that exact spot.
And Linval came over and was talking to him, and like, just my mind was just thinking about how much weight and how much food would need to be fed. Like, if those two walked into my restaurant when I worked at a restaurant and just being like, oh no, you got to go pull stuff out of the walk-in, guys. Like, we're in trouble right now.
We got some work to do. Yeah. All right. So now to coaching. I think Joe Brady was consistently good. I think there was a couple spots where I would have loved a few more first down play action, especially later, where I think we really had it set up well. I think he waited on a couple of those, but that's nitpicking on what was overall, I think, a very, very good game from Joe Brady. I think he set things up well. I think he found some runs that were working against the number one run defense in the NFL. I think he let Josh be Josh. He moved the pocket well.
There weren't any 3 and outs, right? Like,
I don't think
have had. There was the interception was within 3 plays, but it wasn't a 3 and out. But I'm trying to think back.
They had one that was a 4 and out, technically, where we got a first down to Gabe Davis and then a 3 and out.
Okay.
But
and that overall, was on the sack, that untimely sack you were talking about. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that was the one where it really sucked. Give up, like, hey, this is a really bad time to give up a sack here. So, I think Brady was very, very good, creative. We put up 34 points on the Eagles. Like, that's a great game. And that's with 2 missed field goals and a dropped touchdown from James Cook, and what easily was he schemed open that play, that answer to the cover zero blitz was a touchdown play call that Josh and Gabe couldn't match up. So, you're talking about those handful of plays
the
there
reaction
was 17 more points. Like, we had a 51-point potential here in this game. So,
and producer Chris letting us know first drive was a 3-and-out. And then they went 3-and-out. It was
good call. In the opener of what they set up, that was a weird one, and that was, I like the idea. Now in hindsight, them running the ball on 3rd and 2 seemed a little weird when really he did have an idea of what was going to work against them, and that exact play worked tremendously the rest of the game. So that wasn't crazy for him to run that. It just felt weird in the moment of like, oh my God, why do we try that? Why do we try to double team those two guys and run for a first down? They did it the rest of the game. It just looked weird in that first play.
Yeah.
On the other side, McDermott deserves credit for the game plan that completely shut down the Eagles in the first half, held them to 88 points and 7 points and 88 yards. He also deserves blame for the 30 points in the second half and the 290 yards in the second half. I think that we were reasonably aggressive. There was a couple. The one punt was a little painful, but it was also a weird down and distance. I'm trying to pull up which the spot where we were at the Philly 40. That was the one where the penalties made it untenable.
Yeah.
We had a 2nd and 6 at the Philly 30, and then, false start, incomplete, and now you're 4th and 16. 4th and 16 is super low percentage. We obviously saw what Tyler Bass did, so I hate anytime we punt inside their territory, but what are you going to do on 4th and 16?
That was a shoot yourself in the foot moment that there's no good answer to that.
The one at the end of the game, I believe fully that Sean McDermott played the right analytics and played the numbers correctly and did what the vast majority of smart coaches would have done. I get it. Everybody ices the kicker. That's not the end of the world. I'm okay taking the one timeout, is not in a terrible spot as you're kind of looking for what they're doing. But situationally, in hindsight, in the position that you're in, and the biggest piece is knowing what a anchor around the neck of your fan base and organization, the stupid 13 seconds thing is. Like, you have an opportunity to, kind of have an answer to that, to kind of have a, hey, we had the opportunity and we did it because we have the amazing quarterback and the explosive chance. Those timeouts added no on-field value. They weren't stupid, but in your mind, you still were aware that, hey, there's only 30 seconds here. I have a chance to do this. They didn't actually help with anything. I don't know that icing the kicker on a 59-yard attempt is the reason anyone is going to make or not make a 59-yard attempt.
Sure.
So then you have a chance with, 5 wide in empty back in 20 seconds and 2 or 3 timeouts. It's not impossible that's for sure 3 plays. You can run 3 plays with that amount of time with multiple timeouts. It's not impossible to get 30 yards in 3 plays. 30 yards, you get to attempt a field goal to win the game. And you have all the pieces that are in the psyche of this fan base and everything that's there. I think taking those timeouts in the spot to then kneel it afterwards, I just think you have to read the room better. You have to be more aware of that. And I get it. Nance or Romo, whoever it was, kind of gave him a pass. They're like, wow, it's just as likely to have a strip sack fumble as it is to get a 10-yard play. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not just as likely. Yes, it's possible. It's I have a
13
mountain of
seconds also
evidence
isn't the
that is
likely
way-
outcome.
No, of course not.
And you don't have to play. I don't want my coach to play to the feeling of the fans to make their feelings better in those situations.
I
I think
want him to
in
play
the
to the
moment
feelings
he
of the
wasn't.
locker room that I believe that you can make something amazing happen within 20 seconds. Here's some timeouts. See what you can do to go win this game.
The first timeout he took, I think he was trusting in his defense to make a play, trying to get them in the right look, and that's fine. Icing the
That's what I
kicker,
said
I think,
too.
is stupid all the time. But the league,
Knowing in that moment, you know for sure you have the opportunity to get the ball with 2 timeouts.
there's
and
some
you still
reason
use it to
though
ice the kicker. So
within
he
the
already
NFL,
knew he was taking a knee.
within the NFL, there is just a within the coaching circles, they just do it. It doesn't seem to matter. There is no data that shows icing the kicker does it. They just automatically do this. And I am mad that he took it, but I don't think that they were, even if he had that second timeout, I don't think they were going to go aggressive in
He
that way.
used the
in that
timeout
moment.
because he knew he wasn't going
Yeah.
to give them an opportunity to run any plays.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I did not mind getting them into field goal range, and that wasn't even really field goal range. It felt like in that game, and making that
No, it was a
insane,
ridiculous kick. It was an amazing
ridiculous
Amazing
kick is just this the kick in the nuts that this Bills team is this year. And I know I agree with you. I think McDermott will get a ton of hate for that, and I think that people will pick that apart. To me, that's not the reason they lost this game. There's other coaching issues with the structure of the defense in that second half and not being able to make adjustments that should be talked about and combed over and look for, hey, this is one of the problems that we have with Sean McDermott. And I think the biggest problem for Sean McDermott in 2023 is Leslie Frazier not being fired, but deciding to step away that late into the offseason and the Bills not making an effort to replace him. And that was something that we all sort of celebrated in the moment. It was like, oh, okay, now we're going to get aggressive. We're going to see what he can do. And there's been times where it's been great. But I think that has been too much on his plate this year to be the head coach and the defensive play caller. And I think that that's been a thorn in the side of the Bills this entire year. And I think that that's going to be one of the things that he sells to Terry Pegula when we're talking about excuses for this offseason of like, well, hey, now we got Joe Brady here and he might get some job interviews, but he's probably going to stick around for one full season here with the Bills. And we just got to get, maybe we'll make one Eric Washington defensive coordinator or whatever it is and take that off my plate. But in this season, I do think that in hindsight, that was a big mistake for him to take on that much responsibility going into such a large season and what this team needed from their head coach.
How about this? It's why Smiley wasn't fired after the 12-man kick and what has been a pretty egregiously bad special team season, and he deserved to be in that moment. He deserved to be fired more than Ken Dorsey on the season. Ken Dorsey deserved to be fired,
right?
More. The reason he hasn't, if fans don't understand what I'm saying, it's because Matt Smiley does the in-game management piece while McDermott is switching over to defensive coordinator mode when he's having to do that. Smiley is the one doing the in-game management during that time when McDermott normally would have been that CEO style head coach and letting the defense coordinator do defense coordinator stuff.
Yeah.
So we can't fire Smiley because he's the one doing that in game, and we don't have another person also prepared for that part. So yeah, you're right in the sense that there's way more blame for not having the adjustments to give up 30 points and 290 yards in the second half and overtime. That's worse than that. I get frustrated that I think that sends the message to the locker room. They're like, well, I know Andy Reid would have let Patrick Mahomes do this right now and had faith in him, but I don't have that same faith in you. Because that's exactly what it is.
13 seconds was a different game.
If this happened again, the Chiefs and the Eagles played last week. If the Chiefs got the ball back with 20 seconds and 2 timeouts, do you think Andy Reid has Patrick Mahomes take a knee?
Andy Reid is notoriously a bad decision maker. So, I mean, again, I think that game was their season literally was on the line with 20 seconds left when the Bills kicked it to them.
Ours with 20 seconds. So was ours.
Our season's not on the line right now. You just said yourself that there's a path to the playoffs.
Still alive. That this would have helped a ton.
But it's not the same situation as a playoff game is if you don't like. There's no scenario where you take that knee in the 13 seconds game because your season's over. You got to go down and score the ball. Like you have to score to keep your season alive. So they're not, to me, apples to apples. And I think, again, I do think that sometimes Sean McDermott leans probably too far into the analytics, and a lot of the time it shows up that he's right in all these, like that he makes the calls of when to go for it better than most coaches, things like that. But even like the timeout and overtime, I think that there's an issue with some of the people that he has on his staff that help him with the game management stuff, and that ultimately is a Sean McDermott problem. But his inability to get challenges right or take that time out to take a look at that challenge is, like, I knew immediately on that AJ Brown that
Like,
that wasn't going
as
to
soon
be
as you saw the second replay, it was like, oh
correct.
man, that was really close to
Correct.
really close to being a fumble, but it's not. Like,
But
it
I'm
was
certain the guy in the booth was like, hey, take a timeout so we can get a longer look at this play because we think that this can get overturned. And that guy, whoever that guy is for Sean McDermott, is almost always wrong.
yeah, whoever that guy is, he's not done a good job
And so
all.
I think there's
very, very bad.
issues with it. And sure, if he does go for it and they get it, yeah, I would love that. And I get what you're saying in certain terms of sending
I
a
actually
message.
think I wanted him to go for it, like, figuratively, not because my expectation was that we're going to win the game. I think it sucked to be like, no, I don't even want you guys to try. Let's just go to overtime. That's just sucky messaging to send to tell your team. Like, I think the risk of any downside versus the risk of, like, the risk of any turnover downside is here. The
Sure.
risk of winning the game is here, which meant there was like a 95% chance of nothing happening. So give your team the chance of the nothing of like, hey, I believe in you that I think you could pull this off. Let's see what you guys can do. Send that message to the team, knowing that very likely you're going into overtime. Send that message to the team, not the, hey, I don't trust that you guys can do this and not mess it up, and that it's too much of a risk that you're going to turn the ball over and do a sugar high Josh thing or blow a block or anything. Like, I don't trust that. So I need you to just kneel it out, and I'm going to waste my extra time out in case. That's the part I'm mad about. I'm not mad because I thought they were going to win it in regulation. I'm mad that it was just a dumb leadership decision to do that to the team. I think there was an easy opportunity to say, hey, let's see if you guys can pull this off. Oh man, we didn't pull it off. All right, let's go to overtime. Easy. Like, that's an easy choice.
I think they got into that field goal situation. And again, I don't agree that NFL coaches ice kickers, but they all just automatically do this. And I think that's bad. And I think that needs to be evaluated, but I don't think they assumed that was not going to be a field goal that was made in those conditions from that distance. And I don't even think they thought further ahead than that. And so I get what you're saying in terms of messaging, but that it doesn't bother me in that messaging. I think the team, and this is where the hot seat for Sean McDermott, I think it is warming up. I think it is getting hotter. To me, the only thing that matters is, does he lose this locker room in terms of the conversation about messaging? I don't know if he is or not losing the locker room.
And I'll phrase it this way. I don't think that is the reason he does or doesn't. I'm 100% sure it doesn't help. Like, that doesn't win you over the locker room any extra 0.1%. At no point does that do anything positive of saying, hey, I know we could have taken a shot down the field to try something miraculous, but I don't like it. That doesn't do anything positive. At least the other one, there's a chance that it reassures, gives a vote of confidence, goes in the right way. Hell, go for the bullcrap down the field DPI play that happens so often. Maybe we get the makeup call for all the other crap calls earlier in the game.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyways,
we gotta do a West Herr something. If you just want to read how awesome West Herr is.
Yeah, well, and I will say that the West Herr drive of the game was what should have been the game-winning drive of the game. The 10 plays, 74 yards, where 7 of the 10 plays were for runs. The first 5 were for 5 straight runs. It opened with 3 straight double-digit runs. and ended with a really nicely set up play action touchdown because of the runs that they were able to execute. Which was a touchdown to Gabe Davis with a minute 52. In a perfect world where you're there, you find a way to maybe you run one more play, try to force one more timeout. Maybe you tried, in an ideal scenario, you convert the first down at the 3 and then score afterwards. But when you're trying to score a game-winning touchdown, you take the touchdown every single time. You never, you can't get too cute in those scenarios because, again, the Eagles are still a really good defense. So that should have been the play, the game, the drive that we're celebrating as the obvious, easy slam dunk Western drive of the game, because any other situation against any other team, they probably missed that 59-yard field goal. But against the Bills, of course, in the driving rain, they make a 59-yard field goal after I was so ready to tweet something snide about, like, oh, it's interesting to see penalties make an impact on the game, because they finally had some dumb penalties at the end of their drive. So our awesome partners over at Western have been great to us. They have found a way to help so many families in Western New York, not only as the largest automotive group in New York State, but as one of the largest employers in Western New York. So for any of your automotive needs, please check them out and help them out. But
I had
that
two other
deserved to be my drive of the game.
I had two other that I had marked in case of a victory for consideration. One would have been, if it ended up being actually complimentary football, which it wasn't, would have been the first drive of the second half where Philly came out and the Bills got a 3-and-out right away. And it was a sack by Settle Oliver. I don't know who officially was credited with the sack. Must have been Settle.
I actually think Settle got it right now. I actually kind of think it might get changed because
Oliver hit him down.
Touch him. Oliver, I think, is the one who actually touched him down.
That's going to be a money sack
if that gets changed to at Oliver's sack, and he might get that might be the trigger for his escalator.
And then Terrel got the screen stop on a 3rd and 14.
Oh, yeah, after Julio Jones sniffed that out.
Yeah, it was a 3-play, -3-yard, 1-minute drive, and I felt great right there. And then you come down and you get in field goal range, and then Bass misses. And
the big one to Davis right off the bat.
Totally. Shakir had 6, 10, and then you had 3 incompletions in a row, but you were within field goal range, and you could have gone up. What would have been at that point? It would have been 20-7 at that point, and then you feel really good. Obviously, that doesn't happen. They get a touchdown, but then my other drive for consideration would have been the response to that touchdown drive was an 8-play, 54-yard drive, 4 minutes off the clock. Mix of run and pass. You had the Cook 29-yarder where Allen's scrambling out of the pocket, does crazy Josh Allen things where he's dead to right, sack, gets out, hits Cook, and Cook just takes off for 29 yards, which is what we all love to see. Ty Johnson gets a
4 on a scramble and picked up the touchdown on a scramble.
And he got the touchdown on a great scramble. I'm getting texts from everybody like, he's amazing. Josh is amazing. You're up 24-14. You get that 10-point lead back. You're mid into the third quarter at this point. You're feeling pretty good. So those were ones that I was also considering for our friends at West Herr to be drives of the game. But unfortunately,
we're not allowed to have nice things.
Yeah. I should go. There's nothing more.
That's it. I have nothing else to add.
Yeah.
So in closing, there's a ton of you guys in here. Help us out. Press the like button. You guys see us process this live in the moment. We haven't had a chance to watch this. I can't wait to see. I can't wait. I'm still despite the fact that I don't want to, I'm still going to watch Eric and Anthony's breakdown. There's a lot of things that I'm curious about how they came about. I'm curious where the adjustments came from in Philly's offense in the second half, what they got going after we had such a dominant first half, and that I think there's some pieces that I'm curious about. So hit the like button, let people know why you enjoyed or why you tolerated hanging out here with us tonight. There's going to be a lot of other interesting stuff that we'll change up a few of our routines going into the bye week here to try to figure out, which pieces we want to focus on. I will probably do a little bit of research onto what some of the contract situations look like going into the offseason. I've gotten that question a lot of how we can manage some of that. We'll do some of the playoff simulator things. We're now going to be very much into the rooting interest game. Our guy Uber Hansen does a fantastic breakdown each week on which teams to root for in each game this week. So make sure you're checking out some of those things. There'll be a lot of different pieces. And games like tonight are where it really should feel awesome in the Cover One Slack channel, and probably was for a lot of exuberant moments that were amazing, and then is painful in the moments afterwards. But it can still be a lot more productive and healthy discussion than some of the things you see on social media and Twitter. So if you're interested in supporting us and all the tools we use to research what we do here at Cover One, the best way to do it is listen to these guys here. Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One Pass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
So I'll take pity clicks, I'll take pity likes, I'll take pity Cover One Pass signups. But we have really good stuff, and if you sign up for One Pass, you actually get that through the entire next calendar year. So that'll take you through the entire off season and through the majority of next season as well. It's also not even a cheesy plug. It really is a nice gift if you're listening and you have a husband, a wife, a father, a mother, a brother, or sister, someone who's really, really into the Bills and you think might enjoy this. It's a really cool gift to be able to give them. I just helped somebody do that earlier today through DMs of how to get set up with gifting a subscription as well.
Yep. I love it for these moments of processing, even though it gets crazy in the Slack channel as well. You'll get the content first. We talk about all the time, waiting for Anthony and Eric to go through the film. There's a film Slack group in there where he's going to be posting most of the tidbits and the whys and the what happens in there before anybody else gets it, and being able to have that conversation, not just sit there on YouTube and watch Anthony and Eric, but the types of conversations that you have about the plays and about the situations and things like that with Eric is such a value in and of itself. So before we get out of here, Greg, my friend just texted me, and I got to read this one to you. He sent me like an image and said, when Judgment Day comes, I'm going to make sure I'm wearing a Bill shirt just so God knows that I've already been through hell. I thought you might like that.
I'm really sad how hard that made me laugh. That hurts my soul. He's right. We don't deserve good things.
No, we do deserve.
I've just come to accept that I am just due for a life of punishment. It hurts my soul. I have no answers.
I mean, at least you're good at real life.
So there are good things happening in life. There are lots of good things happening in life. I'm very, very excited about that. I just got back from a lovely vacation with my family. That was very, very nice. I actually had a very nice, like mostly cheesy, but actual sincere kind of spiel I was going to do at the end of the show tonight about what I'm thankful for, including you and our friendship and everything that's grown, our community here with Cover One specifically, but with Bills fans and everything, and how we have a little niche podcast in our little corner of the internet, but it's really cool, and the way that people kind of engage with us and tell us how much some of our our therapy sessions after wins and celebrations after losses, or flip that, our therapy sessions after losses and celebrations after wins, how much that means to them when a lot of times it's hard. We're just kind of talking out into the void of nothing in the internet. It's really, really nice, and I'm genuinely thankful for it. And I won't let the pain of moments like tonight take away from how genuinely thankful I am. But
thanks, man.
It makes it a little bit harder.
I'm thankful for you too. I'm thankful for all the people that work for us at Cover One, putting in countless hours to make good content, bring to you guys, and the relationships we built there. But sort of on your point, like I get a weird amount of like really hateful troll, like constantly retweeting me, talking about me, that people send me like, have you seen this guy saying this thing about you? And I hadn't, and they saying it, but it's more overwhelming support and love and kindness from people that actually watch and consume the content and are happy that we're here doing it. And it would be easy to see those terrible comments and just be like, why am I doing this? I'm not going to do this anymore. But when you get the type of support that Cover One supporters and the people that are here every single week watching, whether it's a win or a loss, and knowing that it matters to people when we miss a show and they're like, hey, why the heck isn't the show up? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
To know that it matters to people in that way. I know it sounds cheesy, but it is really part of what, I mean, my ego helps to keep it going. I love hearing myself talk and all that, but really the support that we get really does matter to us, and I'm thankful for each and every one of you that show up and support it.
Yeah. Can't echo that enough. So thank you to our awesome producer, Chris Kepner, who sifted through just a dumpster fire of a chat tonight. There was, the Eagles fans deserve to come in here.
Yeah.
They did. They won. They had an amazing second half and deserved the win tonight. Their fourth straight come from behind double-digit deficit win against the Cowboys, Chiefs, and Bills. Like, they deserved everything they had there. You guys were pretty reasonable to each other. There were some nasty comments in there, but it's a rough night. So it's a tough one. Again, help us out. Press the like button on the way out. Come leave us a comment in the chat. That's how the algorithm in today's internet works. That's your way of recommending to other people that they should check out our thing. So if you want to go tell somebody in line at the grocery store or at bus pickup with your kids or when you're getting your oil changed to check out Cover One, that would be awesome too. But all you got to do is press the like button or leave a comment in the YouTube comments. Like, that's how the algorithm works nowadays, that lets them know that, hey, we should show other people this show. That would go a long ways. We would appreciate it. And that's what I would be thankful for. Autumn here being very kind, that saying I'm thankful for Cover One. That's very cool. I don't know if I have anything else. I'm glad Christmas is here. We did most of our Christmas decorating today, getting back from our vacation. So I'm glad that's here. I guess I'm glad the bye week is here, but now it's going to be 2 weeks of hearing people, I'm assuming, want to cut Gabe Davis and fire Sean McDermott, is my guess.
It's not a great way to enter the bye for sure. But it'll give us plenty of time to play with the playoff simulator.
Yeah, I'm gonna go play around. Someone in the chat put the New York Times simulator has a 25% right now. So
Awesome.
You're saying there's a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Great. We appreciate it. On behalf of our awesome producer Chris Kepner and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.